Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the walkthrough for the new MapSight feature. We released the latest version of MapSight Desktop and MapSight Tools late last week, and this webinar will take you step by step through the newest features in the update. So first, we're going to go through some housekeeping items. First, this webinar is being recorded and will be available on our website later this week. I will be sending out an email to each of you to let you know exactly when it is available so that you can go back for reference at any time. Second, all participants are muted and only the speakers will be live. And then that brings us to the third item, which is about asking questions. There is a chat pane in your dashboard. Please go ahead and type your questions in the chat pane, and at the end of the presentation, we will take about 10 minutes to go through any questions that we can. If we are not able to get to everyone's question, then we'll be able to post those questions and answers to our website along with the recording of the webinar. This is what we'll be covering today. There will be a demonstration of both the MapSight device and the desktop software and the new features on both platforms. What we will be demonstrating are subforms, review and edits, and nested lists. With that, let's get started. Brian Dean, the Solutions Engineer Service Support Manager at Ike GPS, will start the demonstration at the end, and then at the end, both Brian and Gareth Morgan, the MapSight Development Manager at Ike GPS, will go through any questions that come through on the chat panel. Brian, if you're ready to start, I hand the webinar over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Get my screen here so you can see it. All right, so today we're going to start off with the device itself. I'm going to show you some of the differences. As you can see, I'm running 6.1.0, the latest version that was just released. The startup screen, power up screen, you will see no difference. You still have the MapSight icon and the calibrate compass capability. Once you start into the MapSight, you will see the differences immediately. Unlike the previous version, which when you fired it up, you had the default job was already typed in there for you, and then you had the view of the custom form workflows and the forms available. When you start this one, you're going to have a blank home screen, and what you have to do is start with a job. So you go in and you will label a job. Once you have the job that you want to do, the custom forms and tools will show up for you to select from on what you need to utilize during that project. Now, this is a custom form I've developed specifically for the new OS. It is different from previous versions. You may want to also select a target. Whatever ones you have highlighted will be the ones that when you click OK, they're going to be able for you to use in your current job to go perform data collection. Okay? So let's say I've forgotten that I need another form too. All I do is hit the Add button again and pick whichever one I want, select it. It will now be part of the tools or custom form workflows that are available for me to use during that project. So to begin doing my data collection, when I click the arrow, you see at this time I don't have any points collected. I'm going to select the plus button to start collecting data. So immediately you're going to see some differences in when you go in for the data collection process. Previously, now this form has about 35 steps or so. If you remember in the previous version, when you opened it up, if you had the auto step green, then it would automatically go in for your first point that you were going to use, the first tool, okay? If you canceled out, you would see your list of every one of the tools that you had in that custom form workflow, which would spread out quite a bit if you had 35 of them to scroll through. What we've done now is we now have subforms. So I've got one called polls, and under that polls, when I select polls, you actually see that I've got 4 subforms under that polls form, okay? Makes it much easier, much cleaner now for you doing your data collection. Once I've collected whatever I need to, I can go back. You still see that we do have the mandatory items and the non-mandatory items in this. A difference you're going to find now in this latest release is you'll still be able to close out this and move on to the next poll or target that you need to capture, because there is not a save button anymore, okay? Everything is automatically saved. So you've got to be careful now about this, and you're going to have to go in and view and make sure that you've captured all the items that are mandatory, okay? Once I've gotten the poll picks that I need, I just click back. I'm ready to go pick my next item, which may be spans. It may be span heights, whatever you have developed in your custom form. And I'm going to show you this in a little bit on the desktop side of the software, okay? So one of the items that I want to show in this new version also, the capability of nested lists, okay? So let's say you want to go out, you want to allow the guy in the field to tell what attachments are on the pole and who owns them. Before it was kind of cumbersome to do that in the old OS. But with the new OS, when I do my selection of my attachment, if I select cable TV, I have said that there could be Comcast or Verizon on there for me to label it, okay? So all this is doing is giving the guy in the office to see attachment 1 through whatever, what it is and who it belongs to, so it's easier for him to mark up the photos in the desktop software. Once again, attachment 2 maybe was fiber. It could have belonged to AT&T. And we still have just the basic attachment capability, neutral, transformer, whatever the case is. So you can see how handy this will be for some of you. I know that a few of you asked about this. So now we do have that ability in the custom form, okay? Once again, I'm in and out, doing whatever I need to do, whichever I need to collect, okay? We've still got the same ability. We've got damage, yes, no, capability still. Now let's say that I know that there's some items I haven't captured on this, so I'm going to flag it, okay, just so I'll know that I need to come back to it. So now I'm ready to go back. I'm up and ready to go to the second poll. I'm going to add that second poll. I'm ready to start doing my data capture. Once again, go into whichever ones you need, utilize the ones that you need, that you've made mandatory, make sure those are captured. I'm going into my details again. I just want to show you a couple examples of what's going on with our new capability of the flags items. So I've gone through, captured everything. I'm going to jump out. I'm going to look at my list of what I've captured, okay? So I've captured 2 polls so far. This tells me I've captured everything because I did the quick visual to make sure I got the mandatory items at the minimum and then the other items that I needed. This one I've told myself I need to go back and check and finish up, okay? So this is just kind of a handy tool. I'm going to jump back in. I've gone in. Maybe I needed to just double check a detail or something. You know how we go with the comments and everything we need. I fill in what I need. So maybe it was, I didn't add that yet because I wasn't sure because it wasn't on the poll. So I've gone back. I've taken care of it. So now all that is taken care of. I now have 2 completed polls. So as you can see, you can go in and out of this, go back, edit what you need. If you find out about poll number 6 that you've gotten something wrong, you call it the wrong company or whatever, it's easy. You just go back, select the previous one. If you've messed up and you want to delete it, for some reason, we now have the ability to delete all that info you've captured about that poll to start over again, okay? Before, once you hit saved, you're done. So if you captured a poll wrong, got a bunch of info, you had to recapture it, and we know it got kind of ugly. But the nice part about this, too, is I'm done for the day. I'm going back. When I come back the next day, because I'm going to go finish those line of polls that I didn't get done today, either because of the weather, kind of like it is today, nice and rainy. So once I go back out, I'm ready to go back out and capture. As you can see, all my items are there from before. I can go in, change anything I need to. If that was not actually Comcast, and I figured out that that was Verizon, I fixed it, and then I move on to what I need to do. Okay, so a lot of nice features there, a lot of improvements, a lot of the things you guys have been asking for. We've tried to get incorporated in there. Hopefully you enjoy it, but as always that we tell you, once you play with it, please give us some feedback. We want the good, the bad, and ugly. Tell us what you like. If you want to see something else, we're always working to improve it, and we can't do it without feedback from you guys using it in the field. All right. Carrot, did I miss anything you wanted me to go over? Okay. I'm going to move on, and we're going to jump into the desktop software. So once again, on the face, you're not going to see any difference on the software. Works the same as far as developing the forms of the drag and drop. Works the same as downloading the data. No difference markup, anything there. What I'm going to start showing you now is the new capability that we have in the desktop software. Okay. Once again, call this whatever you want. Make it mandatory if you want. Same thing with the outputs, no difference. You determine what you want exported to the CSV. You customize it any way you want. These are all fully customizable and anything you want to call it, just to make it either match up with your current database, or for me, it's just to make sure that this is not a super long CSV, because everything that's checked is going to be exported to my CSV file. Okay? Now, the difference comes in is this subform capability right here. As you saw on my first over on the device, I called it poll. Okay? So I'm going to bring another one over, and you guys that have worked with me some, I've kind of got some basic items that I do. We're not going to make it mandatory because it may not be required, but we've got to be sure that we add in there polls. We don't need the date and time again. I don't need the position again because I've already got all that info in that first one. I can go clean up these names here if I want. But I know some of our clients are taking multiple photos at the top of a poll just to get that 360 view so they don't miss anything, because it's a lot easier to take 2 extra pictures real quick than it is to drive back out to the job site. Cloning still have that capability. The only thing you have to watch in cloning is when you do, you need to go in and add the subform again. So far, it doesn't carry over there. Double check that if you have changed one of the output names, that once you customize an output name, every time you clone it, you've got to go in and edit that piece specifically, okay? Just to show you real quick, we're going to call this top poll 1 pick, okay? So when I go in and clone, as you can see, top poll 2, everything's going. This one did not change, so I have to manually go in and make sure I update it to match up my top poll 2 pick, and also to add in my subform. Okay? Same thing right down. Nothing else changes as far as the drag and drop capability. One of the big things that we did change in this, you saw that nested list capability. Okay? So I'm going to go over that. So attachment 1, the items we talked about, I did cable TV, double underscore, and then the name. Okay? Same thing if I want to see double underscore Verizon. All right? We're just going to use names so don't get mad at me. Same thing with fiber, double underscore, and we're just going to stick with the same names. If I want to be able to select from a Verizon again for fiber, I've got to type it again. If I want just the transformer, I just type it in there. Hey, you guys ought to be happy. I'm doing good today with my typing. I'm not misspelling a lot of stuff. Same thing with neutral. All right, so I've got all of that in there. Once again, I've got my mandatory and my subform. This is where I'm going to go in. I may call it details. Maybe you actually call it attachments, because sometimes you may not need to use that one. So I can just skip that form folder altogether. However you want to work it. Now I'm ready to go in, clone those. They're going to show up again. And in the device, same process. I've got to give it a name. I'm going to save it. I've got that image capability. Now this is what's going to show up on the device itself, okay? So I can go in. You know we have some default. You can see the little ones are default. The bigger ones are JPEGs or PNGs that I have drug over into this folder right here, so I can use them later on. So this one will just use our big logo. My KMZ geometry, I select which item that I've got coordinates with where I want it to show up on Google Earth. 99% of the time it's the whole pole or some other thing that you've used that you want it to show up where the pole is located. That's where you want the icon to show up. The image, most of the time it's that whole pole because usually that's the one that you mark up. We understand that you guys that take multiple would like to be able to pick from the photo. We don't have that capability yet, but that is something that we are looking at to have that ability to do. Hopefully it'll come to fruition. So I've got my KMZ geometry, I've got my image, we're using the whole pole. So another thing that you can do, just to kind of remind your client of who's done the work for him, I'm going to grab my company logo and I'm going to use that. So every time I double click on that KMZ or send the client to KMZ and he double clicks on it, when it auto-populates in Google Earth, my company logo is going to show up where every pole is located. And then from there, he's going to click the icon, and that photo from the whole pole is going to show up, okay? So once again, no difference in developing your custom form workflows. The only difference you're going to have is I need to make sure that I label each one of these items with whichever form I want it to go under, okay? And you can build them however you want. You can see it's going to be a huge, huge time savings and the ability for when I go out there in the field that, okay, if this one was attachments and I'm not doing any of those today, I don't have to cancel out because that was 8 or 9 of them in my custom form workflow originally. I'd have to skip through them, go down to the next item that's required and click on it. Here, I just go in, what ones I've got, don't need it, back out, go to my anchors, whatever the case is. So it just makes it nice and neat, a lot quicker for your data capture. Okay, Garrett, I'm gonna see if you have anything else for me to point out right at the moment.
I think that's pretty good, Brian. We do have a few questions that have come through. If we want to move on to answering those.
All right, so I'm going to turn it over. So you guys, if you have any more questions, make sure you get them typed in there. Garrett is going to work on answering the questions for you, and we're going to take about 10 minutes to do that if that's what's needed. And Garrett, it's on to you.
Okay, thanks, Brian. So we have 4 questions that have come through, so I'll just quickly run through those. So Jacques has mentioned that he's having trouble downloading from the website. So we'll look into that, Jacques, and try and get that fixed as soon as we can and get back to you once you're able to do that. So sorry about that. Josh has asked if we can change the name of the poll. That's not a feature that's currently available, although that's very high on our backlog. Look for that in the next release, which should be very early next year. So definitely that's a feature that a lot of people have asked for and something we're looking to deliver as soon as we can. And in terms of flagging a specific item, that's something that Michael has asked. We are absolutely looking at ways to improve flagging. That's work that's ongoing. So this is just a initial implementation where we focused on the whole form, but absolutely want to make sure that every feature can be flagged. So definitely something we're working on, and hopefully we'll get that in the next release as well. Yeah, absolutely. And then, so we've just seen that a couple of other people haven't been able to download. In terms of installing the OS onto the device, Gianni, you need the installer for the device. You need that on your desktop. You need to connect the device via ActiveSync or Windows Mobile Center to your computer, and then just run the installer and follow the instructions. And everything should be handled from there. Yes, Michael, in terms of bringing the old IKE form into the new format, absolutely compatible. So the existing form will look exactly the same on the new version on the handheld. You are also able to import that into the desktop and update that with subforms and nested lists if that's what you want to do. So absolutely compatible, as is all of the data that you've captured previously. Nothing has changed there.
Hey, Gareth, real quick, let me just show these guys, okay? This was, for you guys that have worked with me for a while and gotten demo units and everything, this is the poll audit form that I had on the old OS. All I did was open it up in here. Everything is the same, the way I had it set up. Nothing, it didn't change any of the names of the outputs. So now all I have to do is just go in and start labeling what subforms I want them to go in. Save it, deploy it to your device with the new OS, and you'll now have that capability with the subforms.
Absolutely. And in terms of the data that you've collected, that'll be in the same format. Having subforms doesn't change the outputs at all. So the reports will still look exactly the same. Okay, thanks, Brian. That looks like all the questions that we've got so far. Just wondering if we want to wrap it up there.
Yeah, okay. So again, a reminder to everybody that this webinar will be online, and you will be receiving an email letting you know that you can go and use it as a reference anytime. Also, if you need additional support, you can get that by contacting Brian Beam for the East Coast, and his contact information is there, or Matt Epp, he's on the West Coast. So with that, thank you, everybody, and have a great day.